What if I could offer you a pill that improved your physical and mental health drastically? You could take it every day and it wouldn't have any long-term side effects, negative side effects. It's really cheap to obtain, and most of us have a way to get it ourselves in our own house. Unfortunately, no such pill exists, but there's a simple practice we can add to our daily routines that obtains these same effects, and that's cold water immersion. Today I'm going to be getting into cold water immersion, why it's a great health practice, and why we should all include it in our daily routines. I'm going to start today by getting into some of our biology that will serve as a background for what happens with cold water immersion. First of all, we're going to talk about catecholamines, and I'm just going to inform you a little bit about how these work. These are a category of hormones that are released in response to stress. You probably recognize the names dopamine and adrenaline. You may have heard of noradrenaline. They also go by the names of norepinephrine and epinephrine. Again, whenever we're in times of extreme stress, for example, like when cold water is running over our head, our bodies release dopamine, which then create noradrenaline in our neurons. And then in our adrenal glands, noradrenaline or norepinephrine helps to make adrenaline, also known as epinephrine. This epinephrine or adrenaline gives you that feeling of fight or flight. It makes you extremely nervous, jittery, kind of makes you think clearly in most cases, but it's not necessarily the most pleasant feeling. Dopamine obviously is a very pleasant feeling. We're very familiar with it. Norepinephrine or noradrenaline gives us a sense of acuity. It supplies our muscles with a little bit more blood flow and glucose. It makes us ready to act and think clearly, while dopamine makes us feel good. Now we're going to get into brown adipose tissue, also known as brown fat. Brown adipose tissue makes up a very small portion of the fat in our body. White fat is most of the rest of it. But it's different in that brown adipose tissue, it's very low in volume. You just need a little bit of it, but it helps regulate your body's temperature by actually burning fat within the cell. Whereas white fat, the traditional fat tissue, breaks down fat and releases glucose into the bloodstream whenever we are low on energy in other parts of our body. Brown fat is a marker of good health. According to a review of brown adipose research by Malazewska and Krotowski, brown adipose tissue is known to help combat metabolic complications like dyslipidemia, impaired insulin secretion, and insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes. Now, insulin resistance is another marker of poor health and can lead to diabetes. The Cleveland Clinic stated that anyone can develop insulin resistance temporarily or chronically. Over time, chronic insulin resistance can lead to prediabetes and then type 2 diabetes if it's not treated or able to be treated. Cold water therapy helps with both of these. In a 2005 Czech study, observations of a group of young men after being immersed in cold water showed, quote, plasma noradrenaline and dopamine concentrations were increased by 530% and 250% respectively. This means that after being immersed in cold water for a while, in this study, the participants vastly increased their norepinephrine or noradrenaline and vastly increased their dopamine for a while afterward. Cold water also helps our brown adipose tissue and insulin. According to a 2022 review published to Taylor and Francis, a peer-reviewed journal, cold water immersion seems to reduce and or transform body adipose tissue, as well as reduce insulin resistance and improve insulin sensitivity. This may have a protective effect against cardiovascular, obesity, and other metabolic diseases, and could have prophylactic health effects. This is a diagram on the internet of PET scans of people that actually show the brown adipose tissue in their bodies. This is someone who has a low amount of brown adipose tissue. Some of these dark things showing up are not necessarily brown fat. As you can see, the heart and sometimes the brain show up under these scans. So these actual specks around the shoulders and neck are what we're looking for. And as you can tell, this person subjected to cold exposure is leaner, has a lot of brown adipose tissue. An overweight participant that was exposed to cold Still has some brown tissue developing up here, but as you can tell, the person who relied the most on their brown fat to warm them up actually converted more of their white fat to brown fat. So with that in mind, I want us to stop for a second and visualize what it would be like to make these improvements to our bodies. Having more dopamine is going to make us feel better. More epinephrine is going to make us more alert and focused for hours after immersing in cold water. Our metabolic health would be increased a lot if we participated in cold water immersion very frequently, and our body fat composition would be improved. To conclude, this is sort of like a magic pill. Cold water immersion is something that can really improve your health, and I think it's something that we should do daily. Obviously, it's really uncomfortable, but I would challenge you to try it once, test your mental fortitude, make yourself uncomfortable, and see how you feel. Thank you.